Game 576, this is milestone 3. So for milestone 3, it's similar to milestone 2. I'm doing skinning animation, but now I'm using the compute shader to calculate all the bones. So here's the scene. Let me just walk through it real fast. That spiky object's a light source, and it's the only light source in the scene. Every object behind, or if I go in between the object and the light source, they're dark, and if I go between the lights, in between the light source and the objects, they're bright. And it's just a simple Fong shader. All the animations except for Redman are compressed, and all the animations except for Redman are the bones are being calculated on the compute shader. Okay, so there's Redman, uncompressed running. Teddy's right there. He's just repeating walk. The Green Man is cycling, uppercut, punch, and run. Blue Man's repeating punch. The first Brown Man is repeating run. This brown man is repeating walk, and the gray man is mixing between run and walk. I think it's 2 seconds on walk, 2 seconds transitioning, and then 2 seconds on run, and then 2 seconds transitioning back to walk, and it repeats. It's like he's about to start walking. There, now he's walking, and he's gonna go back to running here in a second. So the compression ratio on the run man, I did the run man for the compression. It's 15 frames compressed, 30 frames uncompressed. So I have a ratio of 2.0. And I was trying to do a little bit more compression. I was playing with some constants, but then I noticed like the fall man. He looks a little silly now when he falls. It doesn't look as realistic as it should. So, and some things with the hands were also not looking very good. And that's about it with the scene. Now I'll walk over the code. So instead of having separate compute shaders, I actually made, well, two big compute shaders that did everything. One that mixes and one that doesn't. Currently in my scene, only the gray man mixes, so he was using the mix one. The other ones were just using the compute bones one. So the mix one, or I'll do the compute bones first. So I'm just passing in SSBOs, the bones, the indexes, and the results. All of the bones are all in one giant SSBO. Basically, they're all stacked as a giant array. And I have the current offset and the next offset. That's just the frame. So the current frame and the next frame, and they offset what bones to look at in this giant array. Um, let's see. And I'm doing the slurp, and this math is identical to what it was on the CPU. I'm just doing it again, this time on the GPU in the compute shader. And yeah, I added the slurp function to this category. And on the mixer one, it's very similar to the non-mixer one, except now I'm passing another buffer. So I have the running man, which is bones one array, and walking man, which is bones two array. So I'm passing both of those, and those are all the bones stacked for all the frames. And then I'm passing two offsets and delta times on here for walking man and running man. And then I'm slurping running man, slurping walking man, and then I slurp the two results based on this mix factor. And that mix factor is what's slowly transitioning from 0 to 1, stays at 1 for 2 seconds, and then 1 to 0, and stays at 0 for 2 seconds. So that's all that does. And that's pretty much it with there. The vertex shader, now, before I was passing it a giant uniform of matrices. Now I'm just doing the bindings. So I'm just the SSBOs. I'm just passing those now for the inverse poses and for the bones. And other than that, it's very very similar to milestone 2. And all right. So for the game, I had to add a bunch of stuff. I had to add a couple of shaders, all the compute shaders, a skin. Oh yeah, the compute. For compute vertex and fragment shader, compute mixer, and compute bones. Um, let's see, a few new models. I have Oh, I'm sorry. A few animations. I have a human walk, human skin, and then the uncompressed skin. I added types to some of these, so like I have a compressed or uncompressed now, just to know what to do. Um, and then here's where everything is happening. Basically, it's just all the setup, the initial position, rotation scales, and attaching the meshes with the correct model. So I made a few new graphics objects. Here is the mixer one, and here is the non-mixer one. And so loading everything's kind of ugly. I really wish I was a little nicer or a little cleaner there. So I added an update to the graphics object, which will only calculate the time between the frames and to know which frame I'm on, because I need to calculate these offsets, the current and the next, and I also need to calculate the what time I'm on. And I pass that. Oh, and here's the mixer state. So this is the mixer factor that keeps determining if you're running or walking or if you're in a transition. And here's the everything I'm passing to it. And and then instead of passing those giant matrices, I'm just binding the SSBOs, the inverse poses, and the outs. And that's really it. Oh, the FBX converter. One more thing. So now a little bit changed here. Now I have to discard frames, and I'm not pulling the positions or the scales anymore on each bone. So what I'm doing is I'm after I collect all the frames and I have this linked list of frames, I'm determining which ones to discard. So I pull the first frame, the third frame, and I slurp it to the time of the second frame. I then compare every bone on that second frame and see if I can discard this frame without it doing much damage. I played with a few constants, these two right here, to try to determine if it was okay to discard the frame or not. And I got it down. I got Running Man down to about 50% of the frames, and I figured that was good enough. And other than that, it was pretty much the same as the previous milestone. And yeah, that's the assignment.